Senior Host. Welcome to I Need a Session. Boy, oh boy, do we have a wonderful show lined up for you today. Well, today is a little different. The session is open. Yes, so I don't have a special guest with me today. I am taking questions from my chat community. I had a few people to email me some questions today. So, what I'm doing today is all about relationship wellness and emotional wellness. Those are two subjects that are near and dear to my heart. So, I don't like to waste any time. Let's get right to it. Who's ready to talk relationships? Me? Okay, let's get to the first questions. And you guys sent in some really great questions too. Okay. So the first question that I received today, what are some of the best ways or strategies to get to know your partner? And I wanted to start out with that one because I had a similar question with a little twist to it that kind of matched that. And before I answer that, let me just tell you why I'm so passionate about relationships. I believe healthy relationships build amazing families. When we have amazing families, we build amazing communities. When we have amazing communities, that leads to building amazing places in this world for us to live and thrive and all of those kind of wonderful experiences. All right. So let me reread that question. What are some of the best ways or strategies to get to know your partner? Let me just tell you right here and right now. Questions. Ask questions. Curiosity. I cannot tell you how many times I have been in conversation with men and women about getting to know people and not asking questions. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Let me get this straight. You are afraid to talk about money and or a credit score. You've already taken off your clothes, you've already shared your body. What's so wrong with asking that question about what's your financial health? What does that look like? We get to know people through questions, and when we have great information, we can make great decisions. So just even understanding a person's strengths, understanding their challenges. I ask as many questions as you need to. And if a person seems to be bothered by all the questions, they're giving you information. So I think the best thing too is to think about what it is that you're looking for and what you want. Because if you don't ask that person questions, how would you know if they will make a great partner for you? And if it feels like they are evasive about questions, like they're not really giving full answers, they kind of deflect. Deflecting is you ask them a question and they find a way to turn it around, and before you know it, you're no longer talking about them, you are talking about you. So what it ends up being, this person has more information about you than you have about them. So that's a characteristic to pay attention to. And that could roll out to look like different things. One, that person could be insecure. They may not be proud of their history, their past, so they don't want to talk about it. There can be a couple of things going on there. But if you are a person who feels like you have reached this emotional maturity and you need information, I highly recommend, if you can't get any questions answered, don't be afraid to move on and let go. Okay. All right. So here's a question here. Somebody, I got it in the chat. How do you begin to break really deep soul ties? You know what? Before I get to that question, let me answer the other question that somebody asked me. How do you get to know somebody without the relationship becoming sexually charged in the beginning? How do you get to know somebody without the relationship becoming sexually charged in the beginning? Let's go back to number one. Start asking a lot of questions. There's a lot of information to find out about somebody. And once you listen, when you are an adult, you get to make your decisions accordingly, but we need to understand that every decision and every choice comes along with a consequence or maybe a reward. Okay. And when in the beginning, if there's a lot of sexual energy and it feels like um, neither of the people involved can resist that, then I say, hey, pay attention to what you want, because if you're looking for a long-term relationship, there's a possibility that when we move too quickly, we don't always get to know the person that we want, that we don't always get the information that we really need, and it can just fall apart. And then we can kind of put ourselves in this vicious cycle of, you see, this never works out. I knew this was going to be just like the last one. So that's why it's so important to ask questions and become curious. So that's how you do it without it becoming sexually charged. Just continue to talk through it and just make a commitment. Listen, I understand that, when there's an urge in the body, it's like, you know what? I don't know, Kimmy. I don't know. At the same time, in order to have what you want, you got to know what you want. So there's a difference between somebody who wants to just play and have fun. If you ask them in the beginning what they want, asking questions, if they say, I'm just chilling. Remember that question. They are chilling. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Chilling. So let me get to the question in the chat here. How do you begin to break really deep soul ties? There's actually a book about soul ties, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. And it does a really great job of explaining what soul ties are. And a lot of times when people start talking about soul ties, they're talking about those connections that get created when we become intimate with somebody. And that may be coming from a spiritual perspective when you start talking about soul ties. And it can be based on your belief system. But even if I push the spiritual perspective to the side and I start using words like energy. So one of my favorite laws from Isaac Newton is, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred. Yes, he's talking about thermodynamics there, but I feel like you can apply that to human behavior. Think about it this way. Somebody walks into the room and they're upset. They just throw their keys in the table and on the table because they had a lousy day, and they don't speak to anybody. And so somebody is reacting to that, and they're like, well, you don't speak to me, I'm not speaking to you. It's like, wait a minute, you just took on that person's energy. That energy was transferred. Okay, so that's what I mean by that when I use that word energy. So let's go back to soul ties. How do you begin to break them? First, you got to manage your expectations. And when I say manage your expectations, what do you expect to, do you believe or do you expect that you can turn this breakup into a breakthrough? This breakup does not have to turn into a breakdown. And when I use the word breakup, I'm not saying that you were linked to this person for, in a formal relationship, but there was some level of relations there. And that interaction does not have to lead to anybody's breakdown. And it starts here. We start breaking the soul tie here in the mind. A lot of times what's happening is negative messages are passing through our brain, and it starts with statements like, I'm not, I don't, I can't, I won't, instead of I can get through this, I will get through this, and I am amazing enough to and I am worthy enough to have somebody who is deserving of my time, energy, and effort. So breaking that soul tie starts with the mind. Secondly, we have to make a commitment like, I'm going to monitor this communication. Sometimes it can be difficult to stop taking phone calls from people because they keep calling. They are persistent. It's difficult to not respond to the text message. However, there's this whole concept of self-love that I just wholeheartedly embrace. And sometimes because that is missing, it's difficult to do that because that person brought so much validation to us. They made us feel special. They gave us attention. They gave us their time. At the same time, when you know your worth, you're able to say to yourself, you know what, this stings, but I have to move on and let this situationship go. Let this person go. And sometimes it may be a relationship or it may have been a marriage. And especially when you have children with somebody, talk about deep soul ties being really connected. I'm not sure if you all ever heard of this. I'm just not sure if she labeled herself as a preacher, an evangelist, Juanita Bynum. And she does a whole sermon about this topic of soul ties. Oh, but you got to go Google that and get that. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Oh, Tanika, here I see you're saying how. Drop that in the chat if you have something else connected to the how. So let me get my next question out here. Let's see what we got. You guys showed up and showed out for this one. Okay. When is the best time for your kids to be introduced to your partner? Okay, so I believe the best time for you to introduce your partner to your kids, one, if the foundation of trust is there. If there's any issue with trust, they should not be introduced to your children, because that's your foundation. I often like to use the example of the 3 little pigs. There's one little piggy, he made a house built of straw. Then there's the other one built of sticks. And then there's that piggy that built a house made of bricks. The only house that the big bad wolf could not blow down was the house made of bricks. I consider bricks as trust. That's the foundation. So if you're already having difficulty with this person, you can't trust this person, they should not be introduced to your children, because there's something about that's saying this person may not work out. There may be some red flags there. So the best time to introduce your children, your partner to your children, when you feel like you know them, there's been enough time that passed where there's some transparency. There's no question you feel like you can ask her or ask him that they will not answer. There's a level of vulnerability there. And when I say vulnerability, like, listen, I want you to know me. Even though I'm uncomfortable with answering this question or talking about this past issue, but I want to, because I want to make sure that we're fully connected. Okay. All right. So here's another question. When one person in a relationship have kids, but do not want anymore, the partner on the other have kids, but still want kids, how do you handle this kind of relationship, or how do both partners compromise if they want to get married? Oh, talk about loaded. I love it. So, okay, let me just kind of take my time with this one. Hold on, back up. Let me get in. Hold on. So, first we got to start with honesty. Stand in your truth. Standing in your truth is so important. And that goes back to the question that I just answered about the trust. Yeah, Tamika said it sounds like a situationship. So when we don't answer questions in our truth and we just kind of say what the other person wants to hear, we're not having a real conversation. For instance, if somebody asks you how you're doing today and you say fine, but you're not really doing fine, and it's somebody that you can trust, you have a relationship with this person. I mean, it can be a friendship or a neighbor that you all have a great understanding. And if when they asked you how you were, you said fine instead of, you know what, I feel defeated today, I feel disappointed and overwhelmed. That's the true answer. That's how you really felt when they asked you that question. So because you answered fine, they just went on about their day, because what they heard was, oh, nothing else is needed from me, you're fine. But if you would have stood in your truth and gave the real answer, you know what, I'm not doing so well today, I feel defeated, disappointed, then that person may have been able to say to you, you know what, I have a gift certificate to the spa. It's going to expire in 2 days. I'm not going to be able to go. Since you feel overwhelmed and disappointed and defeated, would you like this gift certificate to help you to unwind and relax? Because you stood in your truth, you got a different outcome. So when I take this particular question, and one person has kids and they've already raised their kids, and this person, uh they may not have children, but they want to have children. I think you have to really be, not I think, I know, you have to really be honest and say, you know what, I do love you, and I love you enough as my fellow human being to say, I'm not going to have any children. I've done that. I do respect the fact if you would like to move on and get what you really want, because it would be selfish of me to hold on to you knowing that we don't want the same thing. Because I don't want you to feel resentful. I don't want to feel resentful. And let me just make sure I got the end of that question right. But when a person have kids but do not want anymore, the partner on the other have older kids but still want kids. Yeah. So even though that person have had their children, they still want more. So the compromise is, it's just going to be, I can accept not having any more children with you, or it's going to be, I got to be honest. That's part of my dream and I don't want to miss out on my dream. And being honest and being able to let people go, that's another way of loving people. Yeah. So I have another question here. Let me go to it. One second. This one was a goodie too. Here we go. Okay. When is a good time to tell a man that you're abstaining from sex until marriage? In the beginning. Honey, go ahead and tell that. I mean, because I feel like somebody who's really interested in you, who wants to get to know you, they're going to hear the information, say, okay, thank you for sharing. Listen, I want to know your heart. I want to know what's on your mind. That's what I'm interested in first. And, because here's the thing, when you start building long-term relationships with people and you're ready to be married, at some point, the sex is going to change. That's just because our bodies change. You're not going to be the same person at 62 than you were at 32. Okay. 42, baby. Listen, things are not working the same at 65. But that's what I love about true intimacy. Intimacy works well into the 90s. And when I say 90-year-old individuals, and this is what I mean by intimacy. Honey, I want to hold your hand. Let me rub that back. Let me rub your shoulders. I got my hand on your knee. Let me massage your temples. And let me just hold you. And let me just be with you. So that's what intimacy is. And those are the true intimacy. No, that will not change. But, if you are abstaining from sex, I certainly recommend giving that information up front if it comes up. That's all. I don't think there's anything really that you can ask in the beginning. Because if it's too personal, the person always gets to respond and say, you know what, that question feels a little personal for me right now. We'll circle back around to it. And I can respect that. I was like, go ahead. That's my mature honey. I love it. Go ahead. I respect that response. Okay. So here's another one. Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. What are the true expectations women look for in relationship? I was so happy to get that question. I said, oh, goody, a guy. I love it when men talk. Come through, honey. So, what are the true expectations women look for in a relationship? Yeah, that's a great question. Now, see, hold on. Let me take my time with this one because I may upset some folk. Part of the issue is that I have observed there are no expectations. There are no expectations in the beginning, and that becomes a problem. You got to have some expectations. Like I say to people all the time, listen, create your list. There's nothing wrong with the list. Those are your standards. That is to make sure that anybody just don't get through. Do you think the HR departments of many companies, they don't have criteria, standards? That's because they don't want to spend too much time onboarding individuals who do not meet what they are looking for. Because when you hire somebody, you can't hire somebody just because they're nice. You can't hire somebody just because, I really like your toast. No, because you can waste money doing that. So you have to make sure that the person has the skill set that you need. It's not it is a personal thing. It is, when it comes to HR, it's a professional and a personal thing. And for individuals, just kind of looking at your expectations. If you're looking for somebody who is financially stable, if you are financially stable, if you're looking for somebody who is independent, they are comfortable with being assertive and making decisions. Well, when you meet somebody and you see that, well, right now I'm in between jobs, I just took a severance package, or, I just got laid off, and if they say something like, I've just kind of burnt through my money, well, hold on. Give them some time to kind of regroup and get themselves together. That's what I want for them as my fellow human being. But if you don't have any expectations when people tell you this, you won't be able to line it up with the list to see, hey, let me see. I want somebody who's financially stable. They just told me, he or she, just plug in your pronoun. They just told me they are in between jobs. They've had to move out their home. They're just going through a really difficult time. I understand. Listen, I know what it feels like to fall on hard times. It's one thing when you are in your 20s and you're kind of, dealing with this. And it's another thing when you are, you get to your 40s and 50s and you see how people navigate these situations. That doesn't mean that they're not on their way to bouncing back, but you certainly want to have some expectations about, well, how do I operate in this space? Because you don't want to violate the law of reciprocity. Yeah, the law of reciprocity is you want to make sure that you are not just giving and not receiving. And the other person is just taking, because that's going to lead to some disorder down the road, if that makes sense. So let me just make sure I answered this correctly. Well, from my perspective, what are the true expectations for women? I would like to see a couple of people put some answers in the chat for that one. What are your expectations? I can certainly talk from my perspective as a woman. I expect a person to be kind to me. I expect a person to be trustworthy. I expect a person to be transparent. Yeah, those are things that I expect. I expect a person to show up as a grown-up, period. Those are my expectations as a woman. So I see another question here. When is a good time to tell a man that okay, I just did that one. Okay. If you missed that one, replay the video and you'll see me, you'll hear me answer that question. Does a man have to spill all the beans of what they want in the beginning of a new relationship? Does a man have to spill all the beans? Not necessarily spill all the beans, but I think be as transparent and truthful as they possibly can. And like I said before, if they are not comfortable with answering a question, if it feels too private, too personal, say, you know what? That question feels a little private for me. If we continue to grow and go in this area, I'll be delighted to answer that question for you. For somebody like me, I'm like, boo, come through. I love it. All right, so we got time for one more. Okay. Why do women love a man but date or marry the bad guy? Oh, see, why do women love a good man but date or marry the bad guy? Well, why do women love a good man but date or marry the bad guy? I think they typed it correctly. Well, when it comes to the good guy, there's been this notion that the good guy hold on. There's been a notion that the good guy is boring. That's just what it is in the world. Let me just go ahead and give it to you. People think the good guy is boring. That's what it is, okay? By the time the quote-unquote bad guy comes in, honey, he's spicy. Who don't like a little hot sauce? And so But as far as like somebody making a decision to marry the bad guy, you get to define what the bad guy is. I say whenever a person is balanced and they have done their work, and when I say done their work, they have a great relationship with themselves. The relationship with yourself is the best relationship. And what that means is the self esteem, the self confidence, and the self worth is in place. Because when all of those things are in place, it's not just going to be anything. Anybody or anything is not coming through because you know your worth. Anybody just cannot have you. It's just not going to be. So, and so if a person decides to marry somebody, quote unquote, the bad guy, I would like to kind of unpack what those behaviors are. Because if the bad guy, if that means this person or the bad woman, it's not always, sometimes if the bad, whatever bad is, if that means they're participating in behaviors such as dishonesty, not being transparent, not showing up as a person who can, as they're dependable, they're responsible, then you got, those are broken behaviors. And broken behaviors come from brokenness. So if that person chose that, what they got to ask to themselves, why did I choose brokenness, and what feels or what is broken inside of me? All right. So one last question. How will your book, I Need a Session, make us feel like we're having a session with Kimmy? We all need a session. We all need a session very now and then. What is your favorite part of the ebook? Every page is my favorite page. It's all about, it's a guide to love, confidence, and positivity. Some of you may know or may not know, professionally, I am a counselor. I help people who are looking for treatment with depression, anxiety, PTSD, trauma. And one of the, especially over the past year and a half, I've had so many clients to initiate services with me because of the lack of confidence. Chin up, shoulders back. Confidence is all about the belief that you have in yourself. So this book provides a set of tools and resources to get to that place of emotional wellness. You are amazing. Onward and upward.